to reiterate, the way you set this up, what you want to do to just kind of test the environment, it's very simple. You're going to simply go in, you're going to set up a new event, and I'll do this one more time. You set up a new event, set up the webinar. All you need for the initial setup is a name. So we'll just call this Test Run 2. That's all you need, okay? Just come down to the bottom, save the webinar, and away you go. Okay, now if I want to start it, then what I do is I can either come over here, pick the event that I want to start, and then hit Start right here, or right in this window, I can pick on this box and say, go ahead and start, and it will start it, okay? So if I say Start Event, okay, now I'm in the test run. Now, what I would often do, and you can do this a couple different ways. I can start a Chrome incognito window, or I could go to another browser and I could actually start another webinar session, and then that way I can use that to watch and check on what I'm doing, okay? So that's one thing that's pretty nice, because that way you can set up the environment and you can observe the environment, and that way you can make sure that everything is working the way you want it to be working, all right? So there's a few things that you've got to do when you get into your environment, okay, before you start the event. The first thing is, and they've got this little check panel here, which you can expand. This basically checks the health of your environment. Now, they recommend on a Mac that you do the webinar from FoxPro. I did all of mine on Chrome, and I had no problems whatsoever. So, you know, you can do either one. The only thing that you'll get is you'll get a message that pops up saying, hey, you need to start FoxPro, or you know, FoxPro is preferred, and I just close the message and go on. You want to check your cache. You want to check that you got the plugin installed correctly. You want to check and make sure that the mic is cleared. Sorry about that. Let me get rid of that. Let me close this.
Hey, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay. Anybody else?
That should, hold on, I think I've done that. Oh, got it. Let me do this.
I think Carol and I are experiencing a lot of feedback, Derek.
All right, hold on. I had to clear that out because of the test. I forgot that it feeds back on the mic.
Okay.
Is everybody hearing okay now?
Yep.
Nobody's deaf? Okay. All right, so you do the tests. Just don't do the mic test. I do the speed test. Basically, make sure everything's working correctly. Once that's done, then you're ready to go and you can click Start. Now, if I click Start, I'm afraid what will happen is we're going to get a conflict between WebinarJEO and Zoom, so I'm not going to click Start on this webinar or on this Zoom call. But that's all you do is you go ahead and click Start, and it would start the webinar. Now, there's a couple of things that have to happen. If you've got a co-presenter, what will happen is you'll see over here the number of participants where I'm circling. What you'll do is when you click on the participants, it'll bring up the participant list, and then there'll be some symbols here that'll have the mics and the chat room control, etc. And what you want to do is it'll put a circle and an X through it. What you're actually doing is passing control to that partner. So for example, when I did my webinars, my partner's in San Diego. What I did is I would then pass control to him so he could be talking and he could be managing the chat room while I'm giving the webinar. And that's how that control is passed. It's really simple to do, but you do it right at the beginning of the webinar, okay? Then, if you have a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation or something along those lines, the control for that is right here. Right now we're on camera. If I were to, assuming that I've started this, I would have, the camera would be active and you'd see me in the view area. If I want to transfer to a PowerPoint presentation or to my desktop or whatever, then what I do is I click on this share entire screen, and then that would go into this area and I would come off the screen. That's why when you do that, it's valuable to do one of two things. Either have a co-presenter that you've passed some controls to so that they can watch the chat room and they can watch the presentation and kind of keep you informed in terms of what's going on, or you set that, that parallel environment up. So let's say, for example, if I copy this link right here, if I copy that, and then I actually go ahead and create an incognito window, and I place that link into that incognito window, this is what will come up. And then I can log into it. And I can go into it. So I'm now looking at the test run session that I'm actually running on my computer through this other window. So that's me presenting, okay? And then this is me watching it through an incognito window. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are you guys following?
Yes.
Yes.
We're following.
Okay. All right.
Good
So,
stuff.
all right. So now let's go back to kind of all the setups, because there's some really cool things that you can do. So one of the things that I did when I did the presentation is, now how many of you guys have Lively? Anybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Nope.
All right.
No.
So what I did is I set up my webinars so that they were basically being syndicated through Lively when I was doing them. So not only did I get my audience on the webinar, but I actually got a much larger audience through Lively on Facebook. And the way that you do that is when you do your setup, let's go back to doing the rest of the setup. Okay, so let's go ahead and go in to edit this event. All right, so now I have the title of it, any tags I want to associate with it. If I want to add anything special in terms of the registration page, in terms of the ending thank you page, or the actual webinar page, I can do all that through this dialog box here in this control. This right here is where you will redirect to, so that when they click on the webinar link, if you want to redirect them for some reason to, let's say, for example, an opt-in page after the webinar is ended, or you want to redirect them to some other page, at the start of the webinar, you can actually use this here. I didn't do a redirect. Well, actually, I take that back. We did a redirect after the webinar was ended. So we put our sign-up page here, and then this was linked here so that when the webinar ended, they could get directed directly to the sign-up page. This is where you set the date and time for your webinar. And then this is important. This is your link to Facebook. So this is part of that live stream to Facebook. And again, if you have LiveLeap set up, you can have this then syndicating across multiple pages. All right. Now, there are some additional settings.
Sorry, Derek.
Yeah, go ahead.
That Facebook click there links it up to LiveLeap.
What happens is, what you do is you go into LiveLeap and you do your setup in LiveLeap, right? You
Okay.
with me? Okay.
Yeah.
So once I get LiveLeap set up, as long as you set up, what this does is this will stream to the Facebook address that you basically give. There's another page here. Let me get to, hold on one second. Let me get some stuff out of my way so I can move us to it. Okay, so let's get down to social networks. Okay, so see how this is Facebook connected?
Yeah.
All right, so when I did the connection here, what I did is I made sure that when I set up my live leap, that the route that live leap, you know how in live leap you have to set up your I forget what they call it. I think they call it a route. It's where you broadcast from and where you broadcast to.
Yeah, it's a route.
Okay, route. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got a route defined so that whatever page you assign here, that's going to be what the route that you're going to be broadcasting from through Lively. So I made this was my, in my case, it was my training center's group page. That was where I was broadcasting from. So that was the page that I joined and connected here. So then now when you go back and you...
Hey, Derek.
Yes.
Derek, real quick. So are you saying that the Facebook key that you use to connect with Webinar JEO is the same Facebook key that you will use in Lively?
It's not the key, it's the actual address, the Facebook account that you're using.
All right. So Webinar JEO doesn't use the Facebook key.
It uses an account. You sign it, like, look, I'll just disconnect.
Okay.
So I'm going to connect Facebook. Okay, well, now it's just doing it automatically because I've done it before. What it's doing is it's not the key. And you know how when you normally, like if you are on another application, you sign up for Facebook, it normally starts you at your personal page.
Yes.
Okay. That's basically what it's doing here. In other words, it's whatever page you're signing into from here. That kind of same kind of sign in.
Okay.
Okay. So now when you do your broadcast over in Lively, you want to make sure that that page is one of the pages that you're broadcasting from in the routes that you create.
Okay. So just a clarifying point.
Yep.
So the Webinar JEO is connected to that particular Facebook page, right? And
Yeah.
so what you do inside of Lively is you just making sure the Lively is connected to that same page as well.
Correct.
And through Lively, they'll be able to broadcast to the other groups and all that other kind of stuff, correct?
That's right. It syndicates to whatever other page
okay.
you set up. Yeah. So now when you go to do your broadcast, it not only broadcasts to your primary page, but it's now going to broadcast to all the other pages that you've set up through Lively. It's pretty cool.
I love that. So whatever's being broadcasted on that page, Lively is taking that and sharing it with everywhere else you want it to be
syndicating it out to every place else. Yep.
Oh man, that is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I will tell you there is something.
I got some ideas.
Yeah, there is some things we ran into though with LiveLeap, and I've got to talk to Andrew about it because I haven't had a chance to address it with him. We had the exact same setup for every webinar we did. There were some times where it would syndicate, and there were some times when it didn't. So, for example, our morning session and our evening session almost always syndicate. Our 12 o'clock noon session almost never did. And I don't know why. So something was going on around noontime, and I don't know if it's the volume of traffic. I don't know if it was something that they were doing. I have no idea what was going on, but so I got to find out about that. So it wasn't.
So did the links, like if you had Lively set up where it sent the link to LinkedIn, did that LinkedIn link still work? Like if you clicked it at noontime, if you clicked it, would the page that you selected in Lively, that would still stream, but it just wouldn't multi-stream on the Facebook groups page?
Sweetie, I'm on a conference call. Can I call you back? Is it emergency or what?
Hey, Harry.
Okay, I'll do that.
I think this is it, buddy. I think this is the solution.
No, it was, like I said, everything was identical from morning, lunch, to dinner. There is no reason that I could see why the noon broadcast should not have happened. But it did, and I don't know why. And I've got to talk to Andrew about it to try to figure out exactly why it didn't happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, there was nothing that I could see that was really visible that would have indicated to me any reason for it not to work.
But did Lively still send out the links? It just didn't duplicate the broadcast? Is that what you're saying? Or it didn't even send out the links at all?
It didn't broadcast
Okay.
at all. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Glad you shared that. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So now going back to this.
Maybe our next Zoom can be on how to set up Lively to connect to this. Because I have Lively, but I don't have set it up. I haven't set it up yet.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I mean, it's Lively is pretty straightforward to set up, and if you guys want to do a session on that, happy to do it. It's not difficult to do.
That'd be great.
Okay. All right. So what you're going to do is you've got all these settings here through this the setup menu for Webinar JEO, and all of these have to do with like the look and the feel. This was very powerful. This setup reminder emails. What I was able to do with this, in fact, I'll show you one of the older webinars. So
Could you stop your sound, Chris, please?
So if you look at like one of these older webinars, if I come in here and I'll show you the reminder menu, what I did. So if you come down here and you look at setup reminders, what it did is I have reminders set up for 3 days before the webinar, 2 days before the webinar, 1 day before the webinar, 2 hours, 1 hour, 15 minutes. And then I have the text. Basically, I just copy and pasted and then did some minor edits so that what would happen is in these time sequences, people that registered were automatically getting these reminders, which is really nice. So all that is really straightforward and really simple to set up and do. Some of the other settings we'll kind of walk through. Of course, this is your initial webinar detail page. These are promo video and recordings, so you can record your webinar. You can send participants a link to the recording, so once it's done, they can go get that recording. You can actually record an autoplay promo so that they see that promo before the webinar. Then you have the choice of whether or not you want to hide the replay controls or not. And then you can also have a thank you promo, so that when the thing's done, they get this automatic playing thank you promo. And of course, this is how you upload videos into the system. Tracking code. So if you want to actually input the tracking codes on this, you can basically, what happens is these codes get added into the header section so that you can actually do the tracking of the participation in the webinar and so on. This controls all the look and feel. So for example, this is where we created our look and feel in terms of our webinar. You can also include footer links if you want to have some finishing text, or if you want to just completely create a completely custom interface. So there are some standard thumbnails that you can use, or you can actually create your own. These are the templates that are currently available. So that's the standard Azure Blue that you saw when I did the registration on that other Chrome page. So it's easy. You just pick the template that you want to use and then do an update, and then that's the template it will use. You can decide the controls on your chat, whether you want it public, you want it private, you want to allow them to ask offline questions. All that's controllable right from here. Managing user registration. In other words, what information do you want to capture on the user registration beyond just their name? Do you want their phone, their address, city, state, zip, etc.? Then you get into the monetization section. So this is, how they, if you want to monetize this thing, I think most of these are, you're probably doing are free, but if you're doing a webinar that you want to be able to charge for, you can set that up. If you want to connect your autoresponder in, which we did, you can hook up your autoresponder. And then these are the promotional things. So this is, an email list to be able to invite people. And this gets created based on signups. If you want to invite presenters. And then the reminder emails that I pointed out. And that's basically it. I mean, it's what I like about this is it's straightforward. It's relatively easy to set up. It's easy to run. The only thing you have to remember is that you want to minimize the number of the amount of resources that are being consumed by other things on your computer. So as long as you make this the primary thing that you're running and you shut everything else down, you shouldn't have any problems running this whatsoever. It should be very, very straightforward. Now, the one other thing I did run into on occasion, and again, it comes back to those resources, and that is here. If you go to start a webinar, so let's get back to the dashboard. Okay. And let's say, for example, I'm going to start this test run. So I click on test run to get it started. When you come down here and you go to click start, if you notice there for a second, this was a little bit not the dark green that you see now. There's a second where things are kind of being set up. When you click on start, there's a time period where this thing is going through and it's checking all the resources before it really launches. If there's anything that's really kind of draining on the resources, it may not launch. And what you have to do, if that happens, what I found the best thing to do is just to shut down your browser, reopen it, and restart it. And I never had an occasion where I wasn't able to get this thing to launch and start. I did have a couple of occasions where I had to kind of go through that process and and kind of go through a restart, if you will.
Hey, Derek.
Yes.
I noticed when we did the test with Harry and Seth, we hit reload. So do you recommend shutting down the browser versus reloading?
I recommend, well, what I personally found was that when that happened, I had more success by just closing the browser and then restarting than I did by doing the reload.
Oh,
so
okay.
Like, if I did a reload, I might do a reload once or twice and it would go through that process. But each time I shut the browser down and restarted and then started the webinar, it always started for me.
And the other thing we ran into is if my end got stuck and I did we were refreshing, everybody would just go blank.
Well, you've got to be really careful. So you've got two people, and so you're the same as what we were doing. So I was the principal presenter, and then Jeff was my partner. Okay. There's a few things that can kind of get you hung up when you're running the system, and it sounds like you guys ran into it. So if you're the principal presenter, you're really the one that's kind of in control of what's going on. And if you get hung up, and then yeah, you can get into a situation where what you have to do is you just both have to completely shut down, and you have to follow this thing in order. If you get out of order, then you're going to be out of order, and then you'll go blank, you'll go dark, and it won't work. Okay, so you got to make sure you're running it in order. I mean, probably the easiest way for me to do that is to set up a webinar right now with you guys. We'll get off of Zoom. I'll schedule a webinar and have you guys actually come into the webinar. And then, Harry, I can make you the co-presenter. and actually show you and let you see what actually happens. Do you want to try that? Guys, everybody want to try that?
Yep.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
So let me set up one right now.
I have a 2 o'clock, so do me a favor and record it for me.
I won't be able to record that because I'm going to be out. Well, let's see. I can record the webinar. Yeah, I can record the webinar. Sure.
Okay. Well, I can get it. I'll get it from Harry. I can get the tips from Harry.
Okay.
So I'll still want to join, but at 2 o'clock, let's have to.
Yeah, no problem. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So give me a second. Let's go through and set up the webinar. So I'm going to go back and do that. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a webinar. We'll just call this dashboard. Let's set up a new event. Set up webinar. Okay, we'll call this test webinar JEO. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this for 1350. And that's for today. We'll leave it off of Facebook. Save that. And then let's edit this. All right, and come over here and let's invite a presenter. So, Harry, give me your email address. Harry?
Harry, you need to unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself and give me your email address.
Now you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Harry Jamison, Jamison,
Okay.
at Gmail.
There's no period in between, right?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Let's edit that. All right, let's go. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to copy this. Let's put this in the chat for everybody. So you want to copy this out of the chat. That's the webinar address, so go ahead and register there. Okay, let me know when you got it.
Including me too, or I'm getting something different?
No, you can use the same thing. You're going to log in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you a co-presenter when you get in there. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go there. I'm going to shut this down. We're going to go ahead and go over there, okay? Stop the share. I'm going to stop this.